They're always the fastest.
All right, we're going to start here.
All right.
Here we are.
All right.
Welcome, everybody. I see people coming in. That's awesome. We're getting a slight late start. We had about 30 seconds of technical difficulties just a minute ago, but we're back and we're going. So as you're joining today, we discovered in our rehearsals that this team of guests is a fan of dad jokes. So that's what we're asking as you're joining today. Let us know where you're joining from and give us your favorite dad joke. Put that in the chat. The dad jokes that we are asking for are, as always, like the worst possible ones. So make sure that you're giving us your worst possible dad jokes. And if you had any issues with the chat a little bit ago, that is open now. Sorry about that. We're just getting things up and running again after some of those technical difficulties. The one I've got in the example is, what do you call an explosive monkey? A baboom. It's
So
terrible.
Good start, Eric. Good start. You're going to scare people off in the chat.
I know, we're going to actually see the
top that.
attendees leaving after all of this. Everyone, as you're joining, we'll start here in just another 30 seconds or so. Still time to get your dad joke in.
Oh man,
These are good ones.
Oh,
You,
put a little
ones.
boogie in it.
Really
A
opened it up.
classic. Thanks, Brian, for that one.
My other favorite one, I'm very pleased with the new refrigerator magnet that I got for Christmas. So far, I have 12 refrigerators. Yeah, it's awful. They don't get any better. Okay, we will go ahead and get started. Oh, it's funny. Apparently, I've not been sharing my screen at all. Sorry about that. We've got some slides we will share later in the event. No worries. Welcome everybody to today's DAP Pro show. Hopefully you have survived the onslaught of dad jokes. Welcome to the January show. If you're new here, our goal with this series is to talk with innovative digital adoption professionals about their approach to DAP and how they've achieved that success. So by the end of each event, we want you to walk away with inspiration, strategies, and principles that you can put into practice today. As always, some quick housekeeping notes. First, we are recording today's event, and you will receive a link to that recording via email within a day or two. It will also be posted on the events page in the WalkMe World community, along with all other prior event recordings. So if you haven't checked that out, we do invite you to take a look. This is very much an interactive session. So even though you're muted, we want to hear from you. So light up that chat with your comments, your emojis, your reactions throughout the event today. We're not super stuffy here. So this is a casual and interactive event. And that includes questions. So our presenters are here to answer your questions. So to make sure they see them, we're asking that you not put your questions in the chat. Instead, use the Q&A button on your Zoom controls at the bottom of your screen. Submit the questions there. You can also upvote questions from other attendees, and I'll be reminding people throughout the event about that periodically as well. So no worries if you forget. Okay, on to the reason that we are here. We are talking about change management. It's a brand new year. Change is always part of that. So let's talk about change management, specifically how the application of digital adoption principles throughout the process of change can make that change more successful and effective. If you're new here, again, here's what you can expect today. First, our presenters are going to each briefly share their story and present their takeaways. Then we'll bring everyone back together to dig in further via a panel discussion and Q&A. So again, send in those questions throughout the event. Today, we are hearing from Gojo, makers of Purell, and Solutions ATI. And in a DAP Pro show first, our guests today have actually worked together on change management projects. So you'll get a comprehensive look at that journey and their learnings along the way. First up, our first guests, we have Jane Hoon and Lacey Petrino from Gojo. Jane is Director of Customer Relationship Management. Lacey is the CRM Engagement Manager. Welcome, you two.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Take it away.
Okay, let me be sure I remember how to share my screen here. I need you to enable sharing, please, Erin.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
There you go. Sorry about that. Again, we had a Zoom crash earlier that just reset all the settings. So we should be good to go.
We are all good. I hope. Let me know if you can see this okay.
Perfect.
Yes.
All right, there
All
it is.
right.
Perfect.
This works. Nice. Okay, well, as Erin said, I am Lacey Petrino, and I'm a CRM engagement manager for Gojo. And I am very excited to be here today to talk to you about how Gojo is built for change. We are the makers of Purell, and whether you're in strategy or implementation, we think that there's something in our story for you. So today, I'm also going to tell you about our DAP journey and some of the ways we think about change management. We chose WalkMe to help our 600 customer-facing teammates through the transition from Salesforce Classic to Salesforce Lightning. We actually considered putting this change on hold as our teammates focused on meeting the incredible customer demand for Purell products during the pandemic. But in true Gojo fashion, we chose to move forward anyway. And because of WalkMe, we had zero productivity lost. In 2021, the time savings that we gained from WalkMe was equivalent to one full-time employee. And we had just one person managing all of WalkMe part-time. With those results in mind, we developed our Center of Excellence strategy and kicked off the formal team in January 2022 with a 12-week Enable Me session led by Will Bennett at Solutions ATI. Will's guidance truly enabled all our builders to receive their project management and technical training certificates in the Digital Adoption Institute and become very functional builders within the first quarter. From there, the team became an absolute powerhouse. We launched on 3 new systems, which are part of the huge network of platforms we have in our greater CRM ecosystem, in 3 languages, and we exceeded all our annual goals by May. With this team's efforts, we saved the equivalent of 4.5 full-time employees in 2022, and we're expanding even further in 2023. So what's the change that we want? Our Center of Excellence purpose is to realize the full value of the business systems that we use every day. And we're going to talk about how we've structured our Center of Excellence to achieve just that. We start here. Effective change management requires good cross-functional engagement from project planning through execution. And we've put these governance teams in place very thoughtfully to ensure alignment and connection to the rest of our organization. Our CRM steering team connects us to the sponsors that we need to successfully prepare for change. Some of the members, including Jane, are ProSci certified in change management. So you'll see some of those concepts come through as we share our story. Our Center of Excellence and our business process owners help us define and manage the change. And the insights that we get help us to know where we need to implement more support or where we can reinforce the value that we're getting to build and sustain advocacy. But we know that change happens at the user level. Our Center of Excellence structure itself is built to ensure we have strong understanding of the business processes our users execute within our CRM ecosystem, and that we get direct feedback from our users. For example, our Tableau builder is the analyst who builds all the Tableau dashboards used by sales. Kelly is intimately aware of how those dashboards function, what users need to see, and how they get to that information. Because she's so integral to that process, our users just naturally go to her when they have questions, giving the Center of Excellence firsthand feedback on challenges and ideas for potential solutions. She's implemented shuttles to commonly used dashboards, simple smart tips explaining what a filter does or what good looks like, and deeper level smart walkthroughs that help contextualize dashboards. There are 2 things that I want you to take away from this example. 1, ensure your WalkMe builders understand your users. Ask your business process experts to devote just 7% of their time to becoming WalkMe builders, and make sure that they're engaging your subject matter experts and your users the whole way from opportunity discovery through QA. And number 2, make it easy. Use a variety of WalkMe solutions and make them available where they're needed. Our mantra has become, don't teach me, automate me. And I'd like to share just a couple examples of the seemingly small solutions that we've put in place as a result of our networked structure that have made big strides in advancing our Center of Excellence purpose. In this situation, we needed a way to identify our distributor sales representatives. We call them DSRs. To do this, we updated our contact job functions in Salesforce. Since we also have a custom field to identify DSRs on our opportunities, we limited who users could assign in that field based on the sales representative job function at the contact level. This would give us 2 benefits. 1, better contact management, and 2, increased usage of the contact roles section on the opportunity. Before the change, we implemented a smart tip on Hover to tell the users this was coming and what they would need to do to ensure their DSR contacts could be associated to their opportunities. This also called their attention to the contact roles section for other stakeholders. After the change, we modified the language to remind users of these ways of working so we could sustain the change. In just 1 month, we had over 750 interactions, which may not seem like much until you realize that of our 600 Salesforce users, less than 150 of them are in sales roles managing opportunities. This next situation actually came to us directly from our Salesforce admin team. They were noticing that account teams were being wiped out every time somebody changed an account owner. And we didn't have a native solution available in Salesforce to help mitigate this. So we developed an autoplay smart walkthrough that triggers every time a user clicks to change an account owner. It will automatically check the Keep Account Teams checkbox, explain to the user why, and remind them to review all of the other options available before they click that Change Owner button. We thought this might be used a handful of times. Imagine our surprise when we saw that it was used over 18,000 times in just 4 months. It's simple, elegant solutions like this that are the main drivers behind saving our users the equivalent of 4.5 full-time employees in 2022. So, if you're ready to make change happen, I want you to remember 3 things. 1, change requires engagement, from the people who choose which changes need to happen, to the people who plan how to make it happen, to the people who need to change behavior. Balance the needs of all your stakeholders and be creative. Because 2, users accept change when it's easy. As you're developing your solutions, bounce your ideas off others. Maybe your first approach works, but there's a way to make it easier. This iteration is going to get you to the simplest possible solution for your users, making it easier for them to accept the change. And 3, it's important to support your big initiatives, but pay attention to the little things you learn through your network. One tiny little checkbox can save hours upon hours of confusion and rework. So I hope that our story gives you some ideas about how you can make change happen in your world.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lacey. This was great stuff. Clapping hands emojis in the chat if you want. Awesome. We're going to transition to our next presenters. Up next, we have Will Bennett, Senior Digital Adoption Consultant, and Andy Hill, Director at Solutions ATI. Welcome, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. And glad to hear Jane and Lacey's story. There. Let's see. All right. Is that coming up okay? You good?
Yeah, it looks good.
All right. Well, so thanks WalkMe for having us here, and thanks Gojo for joining us here. And so my name's Andy. I lead Solutions ATI's digital adoption team. With me, I have Will Bennett, our solution engineer, who was assigned to the Gojo project, as they mentioned. So first, I'd like to tell you about our company and what we do for WalkMe customers. And then Will talk about his experience working with the Gojo team. So Solutions ATI is a veteran-owned and operated consulting firm based in Silicon Valley, and we have team members across the US and India. For over 15 years, we've helped our clients make the most of their IT investments while providing opportunities for veterans in the technology sector. Our services include IT solutions, business operations, and digital adoption solutions, where we come in. Our teams of consultants, whether they be program managers, process engineers, or digital adoption specialists, work at the interface of business and technology to deliver on our clients' business outcomes. And we've been proud to be a WalkMe partner for over 5 years. And I work with my team of digital adoption specialists to satisfy my boss's mandate and to always be ready to staff a client project right away with expert content creators. So let me talk a little bit about what digital adoption is to us at Solutions ATI, and this breaks down into a few solutions that we provide. First is application strategy and user experience. This is where we advise our clients on their kind of strategic approach to IT. Next is enterprise application adoption. This is the rollout and migration to a new enterprise application. And if you've got WalkMe integrated here, or actually any DAP will help you here, you're in good shape. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a bit. Next is community enablement and change governance. This is where we take the best practices of an individual application adoption and we extend them more broadly across multiple changes or ongoing changes. So those of you that have WalkMe or another DAP in multiple apps, or if you're using the DAP Center to bring all those together, you're in good shape here too. And guided help solutions featuring WalkMe is where we employ powerful tools, digital adoption tools to drive digital adoption. And a slightly deeper dive on this. As a WalkMe partner, we've delivered for their customers on over 200 projects over the past several years. Sometimes we provide services the same way that some of you might have seen from WalkMe for onboarding and your first build, or maybe a new set, subsequent build of content being delivered. Other times we provide ongoing services, helping a customer who might not have in-house expertise or one who needs help with trickier WalkMe solutions in a long-term kind of basis. And we also provide enablement services, helping WalkMe customers gain that in-house expertise so that they can take their content themselves going forward. Finally is education and training services. This is where we deliver the essential content elements to each of the kind of previous items. And especially when a client doesn't have a DAP, we spend a lot of time on some of our components of this, which include documents, LMS content, videos, and other forms of messaging. So these are all designed to help our clients get the most of, lost my point there. All designed to help our clients get the most from their digital tools, using those tools as intended and to the fullest benefit of their business. So it was really neat to hear Lacey mention that their Center of Excellence's goal was to realize the full value of the business systems Gojo uses every day. So it's very similar to the goal that we have for our clients. And from our experience, we know that we'll succeed in managing a client's migration if we keep our focus on 4 key pillars. And those are communication, training, access to help, and feedback loops to business and IT. The cool thing about WalkMe is it provides a way for us to do all 4 of those things in one tool set. You might still need an email or a homepage for some initiative, but you can impact each of those 4 pillars in a positive way with WalkMe. That's why we consider using a DAP essential and at the heart of any successful digital adoption project. So next I want to do a little comparison about how some aspects of communication, training, access to help, and feedback loops to business and IT work when you have WalkMe and when you don't, because we've worked with customers who have been on either side and thought it might be useful to share. So when it comes to communication, we saw a great example from Gojo using that simple smart tip to inform users about a change. What's great about it is that it is targeted and timely. Users will see it, they'll remember it. Actually, they don't even need to remember it. It's there when they need it. So they don't even need to include that one in their brain, right? So users will, when the change comes, they have the reminder that it happened, right? So it's super effective. Without a DAP, you're going to have to use what I call broadcast techniques, email, intranet updates, your SharePoint or Google sites, right? And then hope that users remember what they saw and recognize the change when they see it. We actually have one client we support. They're not using a DAP yet. We're getting there. Running Power BI with multiple data inputs coming into the system. And occasionally some data input doesn't refresh on time. And right now, the current approach that we have to do is to send out an email to the impacted user group and hope that they see the email and remember it and read it before referencing outdated data or opening a support ticket. With the DAP, we can just put a smart tip, shout out, something like that out there and get the word out instantaneously. When it comes to training, DAPs provide only the necessary training that you need at the time of need, and you learn or access help while you work. With the DAP, you spend far less of your employees' expensive time on classroom-based live training, LMS delivered training that happens on LMS training that happens on a separate website or system. So if you're learning as you go without a DAP, you probably have like a job aid open on one tab, then your actual job open on another tab. And it's not the same. It's not as fast. Now, automation doesn't exactly fit within our 4 pillars, but it does fall along the lines of simplicity, right? If you automate something, you don't have to train to it. You don't have to provide help for it. Users aren't going to make a mistake doing it. Otherwise, you have to train to those empty clicks, and then your users have to take those empty clicks. Okay, on to kind of feedback loops to business and IT. So after go live, we can sense and respond with support tickets and available analytics. If we have a DAP involved, we have a great set of features ready to provide that feedback. We've got features like onboarding, teach me, tracked events and funnels, or even simple walkthrough completion, just measuring whether or not someone went through this process. All those things are available for you there. Traditionally, you kind of lose that fast response. You rely mainly on support cases provided only when a user volunteers their valuable time to provide you with a support ticket. Otherwise, they might get just frustrated or give up, maybe revert to the old system. Bad news. So Gojo's story and how they incorporated DAP into their training plans was a great way to stay on the left side of this comparison. So that's why I've invited Will to join. Will's been on our team for about 2 years, and he was the enablement manager for Gojo. So he's going to share some of the observations he gathered from working with the Gojo team and talk about how that helped them succeed. So over to you, Will.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Thanks, WalkMe team, for having us on today, and Gojo team, always great to see y'all. So I want to talk about 2 topics here. First of all, I want to take a look at what we see the most successful DAP clients do ahead of time before a project. And second of all, I want to take a look at specifically on Gojo's project, what made them as successful as they are. So first of all, we'll talk about preparing for success is my first topic here. And these are 2 points that we see as common themes with our clients who are the most successful in their digital adoption projects. In other words, this is something that you can do leading up to your first digital adoption project or your next digital adoption project to get the most out of that engagement. So my first point here is about aligning stakeholders appropriately, getting the most important people into the project. And the most important people, in many respects, are your subject matter experts, because your subject matter experts, your SMEs, know the platform inside and out. They know what right looks like, and they probably already know a lot of the complaints or pain points that they're receiving from the field, from the users of the platform. So having them on board at the very beginning of the project will absolutely pay dividends to the success of the project. They will inform the direction of the project from day one. Our next point is having an idea of your target KPIs that you want to influence with your DAP content. So think about ahead of time, think about what metrics you want to improve, and together we can identify processes within your platform to influence those metrics. So for example, if you want to decrease the number of person hours dedicated to correcting bad data, incorrectly added data into your platform, we can focus on adding data validation steps, data validation DAP content to your platform to cut down on that number of hours that's dedicated to doing this task that we shouldn't have to do in the first place, correcting incorrectly entered data. So we don't have to have a perfect perfectly clear, fully fleshed out picture of KPIs, metrics, processes on day one, but having an idea of the metrics, at least in the general direction that you want to go on day one, will ensure that we can hit the ground running and get the most out of our time together. So that's what we see our most successful clients do consistently, and Gojo did both of these. But now I want to transition to specifically on Gojo, what made them as successful as they are. Now, this project was an enablement project primarily, which means that I worked with their team for several weeks, for many weeks, and taught them how to do WalkMe, how to do DAP from both the project management perspective and from the technical perspective of actually building content. So that's the lens that we're going to look at these next 3 points through. First of all, Gojo had a very clear picture up front of their WalkMe roadmap. They knew the solutions that they wanted to build during enablement, and they had a roadmap out into the future of solutions they wanted to build after our enablement project ended, once their builders were fully enabled. And because of that, they knew ahead of time that they wanted to build on 4 platforms: Salesforce, HighSpot, Connexium, and Tableau, I think they were. Because they knew that, we were able to tailor our enablement content specifically to those platforms from day one. So that was very, very helpful. Next, the WalkMe builders from Gojo were already subject matter experts and power users on their platforms. So they already knew the intricacies of the processes they were building DAP content for, and they already knew the pain points of the users, because they're the ones who already answered those questions. And because they had selected that group of people as the builders, the process of identifying KPIs and processes and solutions was pretty much effortless after they understood through enablement how the WalkMe tools worked. And finally, I really can't overstate how much the individuals from Gojo's team contributed to their success. They were active listeners. They built a ton of WalkMe content during enablement. And because they built so much, they got firsthand hands-on experience with some more complicated WalkMe scenarios. And they were able to bring those questions that arose to me during our office hours, our sessions where we worked together. And they would ask the questions, and then we would get to explore unique solutions and maybe some advanced WalkMe features to address those scenarios, because again, we had 4 different platforms with a lot of different nuance to them. So I really enjoy working with Jane and Lacey and the rest of their team. I think some of whom at least are in our webinar today. So hi, everybody. It's been, I've missed y'all. And yeah, it's really nice to see how far they've ran with the relatively short enablement period that we did, how far they've been able to take that training since then. So that's all I have. Back to you, Andy.
Cool. Thanks, Will. So to wrap it up, we think a DAP is really at the heart of any successful digital adoption project, right? It helps you drive success through communication, training, access to help, and bringing those feedback loops into the business and IT. Next, having the right people on your team is essential. This is true in pretty much every context, I would say, but especially for something like DAP, where we see is we're merging the soft skills and change management with more technical skills in maximizing the DAP tool set. It's an important combination to have on your team. And then finally, getting and keeping those people engaged, getting the reps, right, and doing the work will help keep their skills fresh and keep the value coming. So that's it from us. Over to you folks, Aaron and Leah.
Awesome. Thank you again. Thank you, Andy, and Will, and Jane and Lacey again. So now, yeah, as Andy said, I'll invite our moderator to join us. Leah Hedgie is a strategic program manager here at WalkMe, and she'll be the moderator today. She's taking your questions, and she'll be asking questions to the team. So again, use that Q&A button, get any questions in that you have, and feel free to vote for questions other people have put in there. Anything we don't get to today, we'll do our best to answer in the community another time. But Leah, welcome to the DAP Pro Show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Really happy to be here. And we're so lucky to have these perspectives and stories shared today. And as was mentioned earlier, a panel that's worked together in the past. I saw y'all pumping each other up and stuff in the chat, which is just great. So I think how I want to kick it off is, I don't know about all of you that are attendees here, but I know that change management can be quite the buzzword these days. And a common undercurrent that I heard through these presentations is this people factor, this preparing and equipping, supporting individuals to thrive through change. And so I wanted to ask our panelists about this preparing piece, in consideration that integrating digital adoption into change management is having this proactive approach to change. So instead of waiting for stakeholders to reach out to you, waiting for a rollout to happen, you're planning ahead and you're thinking about these transitions well before they happen. So I'm curious, can y'all give an example of how your organization has shifted to incorporating digital adoption earlier in your planning, earlier in your change management process, and maybe any challenges that you ran into to get to that point?
Yeah, I can field this one. It's interesting because we've really taken to heart the ProSci methodology. And so the whole, ADCAR, following the awareness, desire, and thinking about it from a whole systems perspective, the entire body of stakeholders that we've got. As Lacey showed you on that circle, we're really thoughtful about making sure change starts at the top and getting our senior leaders to understand here's what you're saying you need, like whatever the business need is. Here's the solution from a technological standpoint we think is going to solve it, and then here's how we've got to take people through that. And the other thing is that we're constantly scanning the world for potential solutions using things like Forrester research waves and that kind of thing. And then as we think about, okay, yes, we do want to take that step like we did with HighSpot. We implemented HighSpot as we, knowing that we were going to implement it with WalkMe on it just to get started, just so that people could use WalkMe to get their account set up and do a tour of the platform. So it's really kind of changed the way we plan ahead as we're proactive.
Yeah, and just to build on that, we've started to align WalkMe and digital adoption to our project roadmap. So we have a relatively large CRM project roadmap outside of our DAP roadmap. And so as we start to bring those two together, we're also shifting our project owner mindsets from, okay, well, WalkMe is an afterthought for when I get to training, but no, this is automation and teaching even our business process owners what's possible with WalkMe. So by getting into those conversations through the CRM project roadmap earlier, we're able to do those more advanced builds that Will was talking about.
That's fantastic. Anything you want to add, Andy or Will?
I'll just say it's really simple, incorporating a DAP into your adoption planning, digital adoption planning, right, is first off our preferred way of doing it. But you can simplify so much with it, right? I've been talking kind of as we're scoping out what a project might look like with a client who's new to WalkMe, and they said, okay, well then what's the training plan going to look like, before go live? And what do you mean there isn't one? We're not we're working there's a plan, right? But we're not going to get out there and do live sessions or anything. You can unpack your bags. We don't have to do that now. You just start using it on day one. And then in order to make that happen, the more you can integrate the use of a DAP into just the whole process design of whatever you're going to do with the new application. Heck, you can even have, if you've got a agile kind of setup, you can have each feature has a user story of build the change management content, build the DAP content for this change, and then you can make sure that's part of your sprint when you bring in that feature, and so it's a natural part of it rather than this kind of added on activity that has to be planned separately.
I love that. And I love some of the words that were used there, integrating user stories, having the roadmap that's tangential to your other application roadmaps. All of those things are huge, right, for being able to incorporate it earlier in the process. And I think in addition to the planning, right, you roll out these changes with digital adoption on them. And then a common pitfall of change is when all these changes are expertly designed, with Solutions ATI and Gojo working together, they're developed, they're delivered by those wonderful subject matter experts that are only doing this 7% of the time, which is incredible that they're able to have that kind of output. Yeah. But then you have this and then users don't adopt them. So what are your strategies? Not all the time, right? But that can be a pitfall. So I guess what are your strategies for sustaining change and encouraging the individuals to not revert back to the old way of doing things?
Well, we have a very unique way of doing that. So our job is to make it easier for people to do their jobs, right? So we don't let them self-sabotage and do things the old way. So once a change has come, that change is there and you can't go back to the old way. So we prepare them for the change, we make sure that they expect it, and then we just rip the Band-Aid. But before we do that, we have to validate that the new way is easier for them. Otherwise, we need to keep iterating and make it easier before we go forward with that hard change.
And are you referring, Lacey, to those automation strategies that you have? I saw quite a few of those in your examples.
Yeah, especially with the Smart Tip and the way that we identify DSRs and how they associate them to opportunities. You know, we decided, okay, on this day, you absolutely have to have this contact job function in place on your DSR contact record, or you're not going to be able to associate them to your opportunities. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I would just add from, still adopting digital adoption is still a thing, right? We keep pointing people to WalkMe and it seems like it's so easy to us and why isn't everybody using this and getting addicted? We still have a lot of Salesforce and other users who don't choose to use it. So we're constantly reinforcing it in other trainings. So we've got like a big North American business meeting. We're going to do some, CRM introductions and things. And we're going to go, here's how we use, we'll open WalkMe, use this. We'll open WalkMe, do that. So every time we train them, we use WalkMe as the demonstration.
That's brilliant. I love the idea of using automation to not only encourage that oversight and management that adoption is going to happen, right? But further ingraining we know what good looks like. We know that this is going to be the most effective workflow for you, and digital adoption can help you from a user workflow standpoint. That's great. Andy or Will, anything?
Yeah, we agree with the, you said ripping off the Band-Aid. We call it kind of burning the bridges behind you, right? We've seen sometimes where the new application comes up, but the legacy application stays around for a while. And please don't just turn off, let's be done with that, right? So if you make that transition quick, and then of course, if you have informed users who know what's coming, they know what to do when, if you've got a DAP running in the legacy system and the new system, you can tell them it's coming, or you can tell them when they come to the legacy system, the new system's there, no, don't do this, go here, right? And push them, either push, or there's some dirty tricks you can use with WalkMe to preclude people from doing things in the legacy system. Hey, I'm sure you had fun filling out this form. You can't submit it, but just leave this tab open and translate it into the new one. Here's a link to the new one. You can be pretty dramatic with it. But kind of getting those users informed, making sure that they know that the help is there when they get there. You might have to build some trust to make that happen too. Especially if there's been kind of failed efforts that have happened in the past that you've got to recover from and build back your user group's trust.
Yeah, great point about trust. And I think that kind of comes into another theme that I heard mentioned quite a bit that I want to dig into around this user feedback loop, right? Validating that the change is actually working for the user. We think we know what good looks like, and we try it out, and we hope that we get the metrics that we're looking for in terms of changed user behavior. But I guess, what are some mechanisms that you all use to make sure that user feedback is incorporated into your design? And then further, we had a question in the chat around getting data you need to measure success that's important to the business. So maybe that's a combination of user feedback and satisfaction and some other, more hard metrics.
Yeah, having our builders so ingrained in the process and talking to our users every single day is so important, right? So our Salesforce admins do that, our Tableau builder does that, even our builders that don't directly manage a platform, like Glory, who manages our international team. She's constantly interacting with those teams. And Ruth, who's in our IT department, who's brilliant, Like, she understands when things are failing. And actually, we've seen a lot of those relationships develop as we've gone through the WalkMe implementation. And really, it's about our approach and making that really user-centric instead of system-driven, right? It's all about the user experience and making that better, making people's jobs easier. So it's constantly talking to them about what works and what doesn't. And you have a really great point about using some more quantitative data to validate what they're saying. So if someone's saying, oh, well, I'm spending so much time in Salesforce, it's taking up so much of my other job. Well, okay, but if we look in insights, we can see that you're actually only in there for maybe about 5 minutes a day. So tell me how we could make that 5 minutes more effective for you, right? And being able to balance that feedback with the insights that we're getting is just extremely powerful.
Yeah, so I think that there's sort of two different ways that we can measure user success and satisfaction. The first is just asking the user, was this DAP content helpful for you? And they, WalkMe has tools, all DAPs have tools that allow the user to give direct feedback, and they can say, yes, it was very helpful. No, it wasn't very helpful. And that's valuable in itself. But we can also look into the data that's generated either by our underlying platform or by WalkMe itself and compare and contrast. So if the user says, I didn't like the smart walkthrough, the guidance didn't help me, but then we go into our insights and we actually see that users who used this piece of content are actually 70% more successful. Well, that tells a different story than we're getting from direct feedback. So I think we really need to use both, asking the user, was it helpful? And then actually looking at the data, and we can see if it was helpful or not by comparing the number, the success rate of users who did use a certain piece of content versus the success of a user who didn't use that piece of content. So to me, those are the two different ways that we can really gauge the effectiveness and user satisfaction with the content that we build.
It's making me think of one of those biases that come with survey completion. There's like the right name for it that's escaping me right now, but maybe it's like survey completion bias. I don't know, but you've got those.
It is now.
It is today, right? Yeah, for the next 20 minutes. So you'll have those folks like who will volunteer you a support ticket or a otherwise hopefully tactful complaint, but then that's usually just the tip of the iceberg of what you're seeing. So if you've got other means to get that data in terms of what you're seeing in the app, or if you can use a funnel to get an idea of timing, as Lacey was saying, if you can get the timing, then you can reduce it, right? Because your sales reps' jobs are not to use that. Their job is not being good at Salesforce. It's selling. So we can get them fast in there, get them out back on the phone or whatever it is they're doing, then good.
Love it. I love this overlay of the quantitative data and the things that you're seeing in insights, in addition to application specific metrics that maybe you're already tracking, and having that overlay with the more qualitative user driven feedback, because having both is really important to drive your pipeline and to drive your backlog. I think, do you use any of those things like the presence or absence of data to influence how you're prioritizing projects and how you're prioritizing which changes are going to be the most or need a digital adoption solution the most?
Yeah, so sorry, go ahead, Lacey. I'll jump in after you.
Go ahead, because I was going to talk about like ProSci tools that we have, but Jane can speak to those better.
Oh,
yeah. So when we're selecting DAP content to build on specific processes on our platform, we can go the reactive path, which is getting complaints from the field, getting feedback from our users. That's one way to go about it, but the preferred method is to be proactive, where we can use some of the tools that WalkMe has, tracked events and funnels, to gather data about a user's success rate. Let's say we have 5 candidate processes that we think we might want to build content for, but we really only have time to do 1 or 2. We can build data collection tools on those 5 processes, then look at the outputs and see which of those 5 processes deserves our attention the most. Another way that we can use our data to prioritize our solutions.
Yeah, as we were setting out to do this, I answered this question in the chat, but when we were just like embarking on implementing WalkMe on Salesforce, we looked at our processes, kind of two ends of the spectrum, those that people do so many times, so frequently every day, the most users, get rid of the clicks. It's like automate that as much as possible. And then the other end of the spectrum where, I always liken it to taking vacation time. You do it so rarely, you can't remember how to use the system, you got to refer to the job aid. It's like those are the other ones that I prioritize the highest.
So I think also they're, balancing not necessarily the absence of data-driven things as a reason to say, no, we're not going to do this project, but an opportunity to say, hey, we have some tools to help you establish a baseline, and here's, a window into our prioritization process. Super interesting. Another thing both of you spoke about is just the importance of stakeholder management and having the right people involved in driving this change, and specifically around subject matter experts. You were both talking about having subject matter experts that have the bandwidth and have the knowledge deeply ingrained in this process as being super important through the planning, the execution, and the management side of change. So I wonder if you all could speak a little bit more about how that's been a critical part of your strategy.
Yeah, so we were lucky to start with, we had 7 people originally, we're at 5 now who are still with Gojo. But it was nice to have, to say that these were the platforms that we wanted to implement on, and then who were the experts, and get those experts engaged. Because to Lacey's point, as she was giving her presentation, you can't imagine how those things are used every single day. And these guys are 97% of their jobs is delivering in these solutions and fielding questions and improvement ideas from users. And as they're listening to what people are asking for, they can be thinking, can WalkMe solve this? Because they also are WalkMe experts. So it's a beautiful symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, and how interesting with the ongoing management of the solutions. Do you think that if you didn't have those subject matter experts in that place, it would be more difficult to kind of maintain and optimize things?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Lacey referred to our project leaders. There are so many people who can't imagine everything that WalkMe can do. And, and so even now, even if they have WalkMe, even if they use it, they're stuck in like, this is what it does. And they'll come up with new processes and just be like, and here's the job aid, or here's the Q&A document like we used to use, right? It's like, get rid of that, throw it in WalkMe, but they don't remember. I think when you're bridging both worlds, like our builders are, it's just naturally always in mind.
We getting the overlap of like people who understand what the tool does, whatever the target application is where you're applying DAP content, and then the people who understand what the DAP can do, having that overlap is hard to get, but like gold when you have it, because otherwise you've got people that are kind of talking past each other, right? And then or you have the FAQ, which is usually the more like questions we hope you ask rather than the actually frequently asked questions. Yeah, so like it's yeah, gold if you can line up those two things. And I'll say I was surprised at the 7% figure when I saw that from Gojo. I've tried to talk clients into having a very focused set of builders that might span multiple applications, and it's changed my thinking about it a little bit, I'll say. So
good. That's how we're selling it internally. We're looking for more builders as we expand to more platforms, and we're having a lot of success with that. A lot of people are really excited. Yeah, exactly. It's like if you can carve out 7%, it opens you up to this entire world of making your job and everybody else's jobs easier.
Mm-hmm. I like this approach with this kind of like citizen developer model too, because to me, what that also says is that there's a career in DAP professionalism at Gojo, and there's this opportunity for upward mobility and skill development and all of these things that are underlying of, hey, just devote a little bit more of your time to this other skill. It's pretty cool. And I think, do you find that, maybe question for Gojo and then Solutions ATI, if you've seen this with all of your client experience, do you find that this more like citizen developer approach helps with driving more advocacy for a digital adoption platform? Like you said, kind of making sure that the different use cases and value drivers and opportunities are communicated more through the business?
Yeah, I think that it does. Because like Jane said, not only are people just doing their day job, they're thinking about WalkMe in the background, but they're also talking about what WalkMe has done. So think about looking at performance at the end of the year, right? So Kelly was able to tell her manager and her manager's manager everything that we achieved. So not only are we talking about our DAP story from our steering team down, but they're hearing it from users up, and then directly from our builders who are the experts. So if you think about how we're telling our story, how we're driving that advocacy, we're really getting to all of our employees from different points of view. And it's just an amazing thing to watch it grow. Like, people are so excited to have Jane or I reach out, hey, we have an idea about WalkMe. They're like, yes, I'm in.
Right. Yeah. And having those advocates out in the world, I think it's huge. We met with someone who's also a WalkMe expert just to kind of share war stories last week. And their model's different. They've got a specific builder in a job that their job is to build, and they need to be tapped as a consultant in the organization, right? So it comes down to people don't know what they don't know. And if they don't know that WalkMe can help them, when are they ever going to tap you? It's so much easier when you're embedded in what's actually going on in the business. And you're like, wait, I think WalkMe can solve that,
Yeah,
I
so
love
thinking,
that.
yeah, going through like a mental checklist of different projects, different teams I've worked with, specifically where they have their own builders in-house. It's the teams who have the builders distributed through their different business areas that are the most successful. So I think I like the concept of the citizen developer. I think that's a really great indicator and a driver for having a successful in-house WalkMe team.
Borrow that terminology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even if it's, I've seen in my personal experience, I've seen some organizations that even just start to do that with maintenance and optimization, right? Maybe they get their people on board and start building a little bit through or maintaining and optimizing content that's already been built, and then they move into building their own, right? So there's this kind of developing approach that you can take to getting to that model if it works for you. But I absolutely love that. And something that I heard in what you said, Lacey, is that I think is so important is around this communication model. So you're talking about how there's communication both before a project starts to try to tap different stakeholders around opportunities. And then there's also this value narrative kind of realization component of following back up with different people, maybe even prospective stakeholders that don't have digital adoption yet, and saying, here's some value stories and here's how a digital adoption solution can work for you. So I guess for our listeners today, do you have any tips on what a good communication strategy looks like to manage your stakeholders and prospective stakeholders?
Oh, I have so many ideas about communications. That actually is my background. So that's my undergrad degree. And I did that in my first 15 years as a professional. So really you're thinking about the rule of 7, right? You need to hear something 3 times before you retain it, 7 times before you understand it. And honestly, it's probably more. And if you're hearing it from just one person, you're going to, oh, is that person credible? Is this really true? But you get all of these people experiencing the value out of this one thing, and they're all talking about it, and they're all saying how much it's helped them. Then our steering team isn't just relying on the monthly report outs that Jane and I give them, but they're hearing it directly from their direct reports. They're hearing it from the project teams that they're consulting, that they're sponsoring, right? So you're not just hitting them a couple times at those touch points, kind of like how Andy said before, you're talking about preparing them for the change, giving them an FAQ and relying on them to remember it. Like, it's beautiful to be able to just supplement that communication within the platform itself. So you're constantly reminding them, and then having that experience sink in, and then it becomes part of their vocabulary without them even realizing it. It's just an amazing phenomenon to watch, especially given my background over the past year. It's been so exciting.
What an achievement too, in more of a virtual world too, to figure out those different communication changes and still have those advocates through the business. It's amazing. Andy and Will, anything you want to add? Any communication strategies that you've employed?
Yeah, so for us, we really want to keep it around like ease of consumption, right? So that users know what's coming, what they need to do, how they're going to do it, and when, right? And try to keep things consistent, familiar, and simple and brief, right? So that you can drive understanding. I don't know if anyone's an example I've seen recently. Any Microsoft users out there have been told that one app is changing to another, and you're going to use a different icon or something, but it comes up at the top every time I open up like office.com or whatever. This is not a Microsoft advertisement, but I actually thought it's been pretty consistent, and it's like, okay, this is good. It's really, we're changing this to this. Okay. And it's up there every single time. And I don't know if it matters, and then I'll know like why the color on the app on my phone changed. Okay, fine. But it's been very consistent, and it's become familiar, and it's simple.
Makes sense. I know we're almost at time, so I want to give each group a chance to maybe have one thing that they want to leave the audience with. Maybe if you need a prompt, maybe if an organization is trying to take WalkMe and digital adoption and embed it a little bit earlier in their strategy, just be a little bit more proactive with things. What's one or two things that they can take away from and maybe put into practice immediately?
My number one is engage a steering team. It's like get the heads of all the software platform. Like for us, it's sales, marketing, and the services. Every software technology that serves any one of those is in our CRM ecosystem. Make sure all those people are hearing about WalkMe ahead of time. And to Lacey's point, 7 times, ahead of time as you're choosing to implement, as you go through, just keep them informed.
The earlier the better is. As Jane described, there in terms of bringing in the stakeholders, we see a lot of different approaches that fit for different companies. I know some companies where that approach would, from their culture, they would end up stopping completely because their committees tend to get wrangled up at that one client, and other clients where they work together very well, and they put that together. But no matter what, the earlier the better. And if you can have, in terms of integrating a DAP, having that both the legacy platform and the new platform can eliminate the need for a lot of off-app communication. And you can put it all into the flow of work so that the users are comfortable. They've already seen something like WalkMe before they move to the new app. So then that's actually not a change for them. It can be really useful.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. Back to you, Aaron, to close it out.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thank you again, Jane, Lacey, Will, Andy, Leah. As we close, just a couple things I want to quickly share. Andy and Will shared some awesome principles today. I would be remiss if I didn't share where you could learn more about their expertise. So please dig in further. I've shared a link in the chat. Additionally, as you leave today, you'll have the chance to let us know what you thought of this event and give us some information about what you'd like to hear at future events. I personally use that information every single time I plan an event. So I know you get asked to rate and review things constantly in your life, but it really does make a difference. Speaking of future events, just want to share a couple things coming up soon. We've talked a lot about data and goals and things like that today. On January 25th, we have part 2 of our resolutions series on the WalkMe webinar. This one's all about taking the data you've been gathering and applying that toward your goals and determining what to do next. So if you've missed part 1, it's available on demand to view on the community. And then part 2 is January 25th. We have lots of other things happening with the Watch Me Build series around data and reporting and things like that coming up in February, as well as answers to common support questions next week. And then our next DAP Pro show is going to be a great one around just mapping your career journey as a DAP professional. We've got 3 amazing panelists lined up, and you're not going to want to miss that. So all of these events are open for registration right now, so save your spot while you're thinking about it. 2 more quick things. Staying up to date is easier now. We have subscribe buttons in the community on the events page and the announcements page, so you don't miss anything. And lastly, for a limited time, if you share an honest peer review of WalkMe, there might be some Amazon, no might about it. There are Amazon gift cards waiting for you. So if you have 10 to 15 minutes sometime, we do value your opinions, and those links should be in the chat too. That's it for this whirlwind wrap up. Thank you again, everybody, for attending. Thank you to our panelists, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye. Thanks.